Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Thien, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5 even before I finished it. This book was so great and I can't wait to talk about it. My Booktuber show today goes up to Kenneth Fedora. She is a newish booktuber. Show her some support and I'll link her channel down below. And as always, if you're watching this video, I always will appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and comment down below if you have read this book because it was honestly so freaking good for me. This book was published in 2016, so it's been out for a few years. The genre is historical fiction, which is my favorite genre, and the focus of this historical fiction is the timeline of China from the Great Leap Forward to the Cultural Revolution to Tiananmen Square. So it covers many, many decades. A bit about the author, Madeliene Thien. I don't know how to say her name officially, so that's how I'm going to say it, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. She is a Canadian short story and novelist, and she's born in Vancouver like me. She went to a local university I'm familiar with called Simon Fraser University, where she studied contemporary dance, which I thought was very interesting. And then she got a master's in fine arts, specializing in creative writing at actually my university, University of British Columbia. So I think that was really cool, and I like this book because there's part of the book that's set in Vancouver, and just like very small call outs to things like I recognize. Many of her works are focused on the theme of time in connection to place and human emotion, and this book definitely made me feel that way. It's so great. Even though she was born in Vancouver, she currently lives in Montreal, which is the other Canadian city, with her common law partner, who's also a novelist, Ravi Hage. Probably saying it wrong, I'm sorry. The premise of this book is, okay, I just want to say this is one of these rare books as, actually no, I'll save it for my why I like this book, but the premise of this book is there's two timelines and there is a story that's passed on between generations that ties the two timelines together. So I guess the first timeline is we meet Marie, or Mali, who lives in Vancouver with her mom, and when she's 6 or 10 or something like that, her dad goes to Hong Kong and he commits suicide, and they don't really know what happened, to be honest. And then basically shortly after, Ming comes to Vancouver from China shortly after the Tiananmen Square massacre, and Ming's dad was close with Marie Mali's dad. So basically, Marie and her mom are taking care of Ming in Canada, and then Ming had this book of records with this book that's copied over from generation to generation and then shared the story. And then basically, as the story's being told in more recent times, it kind of links back to Sparrow and Kai, which are their fathers, who were musicians and very talented musicians back in China, set in Shanghai and Beijing. And basically, we follow Sparrow and Kai's experience being, these very successful teacher and student at this conservatory in music in Shanghai. But then what happens is, as the story unfolds, things happen. They Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, but it's told from their perspective, so you're kind of not knowing exactly what happens unless you are familiar with the history of this time, because it's told from their perspective, and they're discovering things and they're just as confused because when these things happen, it happens suddenly and it's not clear why it's happening, but people just conform. And yeah, this book was just freaking amazing. I feel like I'm not doing it justice, but there's so many things that goes into it. Basically, that's the premise. Two timelines: the daughters in Canada shortly in the early 90s, and then the fathers from the 50s to 60s, 70s, 80s during China's Great Leap Forward Cultural Revolution up to the Tiananmen Massacre in 1989. Common themes I found in this book is the idea of the beauty of music. The two fathers, they study a lot of music from classical times. And there's just the idea of music can really bring people together, can elicit emotions in people, and especially in the Cultural Revolution. The government tried to squash any type of writing, music, instruments, anything, and just so people wouldn't have the ability to be creative and that kind of stuff. And this book just really emphasized the beauty and importance of having music to elicit creativity, to elicit emotion, to elicit messages, to give people hope. It's just so freaking good. This book again now leads into talking about living in a fear-based society. China's government, the Communist Party, was very we want you to be a certain way, we want you to perform for a party and that kind of stuff. And all these people, especially the father's generation, Sparrow and Kai, they were like, it's better to comply now and hope that it will change in the future. Where I Ming, who's born later, is like, no, we want to take a stand. Hence the Tiananmen massacre, the protests, if you're familiar with that. And you just can't wait for things to change. You need to make things happen. And then also I love the idea of how, like, me growing up, I see my parents as my parents, but your parents had a whole freaking life before they gave birth to you, and all these different characters and personalities. And I just love how this book touches on their fathers being more than just, their dads, and just discovering that they were musicians and that kind of stuff. And the last common theme I enjoy is talking about how generations can think so differently and have very different ideologies. And me and my mom will never see the same, but we can always seek to understand how we came to our conclusions. So I really think the book did a good job about that. Things I didn't like about this book, to be honest, there was nothing. This book was a 5 out of 5 for me. It's one of the rare books where I'm like, I can't wait to reread this in the future. I don't know if it beats my Peach Blossom Spring book that I read earlier this year, but honestly, these books are top 2. And it's kind of funny because they're both historical fictions that are set around the same timeline. So I guess that's just like my theme this year. So what I like about this book, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the rare books that I will reread, and I can't wait till I can reread it in the coming future. And the reason why is because it's set against the setting of this history that I'm not really too familiar with, except I've heard over time just by living and pop culture and that kind of stuff, which is the Cultural Revolution, which is the Chinese Communist Party and that kind of stuff. But you are coming to learn about all this history through the eyes of the characters, which is like first person point of view, and they don't know what's going on, they're confused and that kind of stuff. So this book really made me actually stop reading it so I could watch documentaries on YouTube, read Wikipedia pages, and just have a more understanding, like, oh, this is happening to this village at this time. This is why in the bigger scope. And I just thought it was so good. I love the characters. I love how it spans through decades and how they all connect and fall apart and then reconnect again in the future in a different time, different timeline. It's just so great. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 3.92 out of 5. It came out in 2016, so unfortunately I think that's probably very accurate, but I really don't agree with it. I think it deserves a higher rating. So bad reviews were people thought it was a great story, but the writing style is a bit dragged out and a bit boring to read despite having a great context and great plot. People also struggle with the pacing of the story. I can agree with that. I did feel parts of it maybe would drag, but it's definitely not a book you binge, definitely a book you want to read slowly and digest and come back to. Good reviews are people love multi-generational, decades, families across borders. Some people say, and I want to quote this one from Goodreads, is, "Do not say we have nothing left a permanent mark on me. We are all products of generations of history. As much as certain governments may want to erase that history, we can never truly escape it." And this kind of goes back to the common theme of music and how it elicits certain emotions, memories, and really, without words, different people from different countries can feel the same thing. So it was just so good. People also loved it because reading this book, you will learn so much, which I agree with because it literally made me study on the side the context of this book. Why I think you should read it? I think you should read it if you're a historical fiction fan, you learn about the Chinese Revolution and the events leading up to Tiananmen Square, and also things that happened at Tiananmen Square. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because if you asked me a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what this book was about, but I'll always remember how it made me feel. So this book, it made me feel very curious. I want to learn more. I want to read more of these type of books. I want to reread this book. It made me, go on YouTube, look for Netflix, look for documentaries on Netflix, and just that kind of stuff. So it's a great book because it makes me want to learn more. Thank you for watching until the end of my book review for Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Thien. If you read this book, love to hear what you thought down below. And please, if you have any recommendations for my favorite genre, which is historical fiction, comment down below. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.